Welcome to Null News Now. My name is Merrick Counts, and I will be your host today in this journey through the calming waters of technology news. All right, so I just want to let you know there is some really exciting news that happens somewhere in the middle of this. So you want to stick around and hear it, especially if you're interested in Kubernetes, because it's going to change Kubernetes forever. That might be a little dramatic, but this is news. We never dramatize things. But first, we're going to start off with security, like always. All right. So as almost none of you know, I record these on Saturday night and post them Sunday. That means there is a gap on Sunday where newsworthy stuff could happen that aren't in these videos. And that's what happened last week. So Cloudflare suffered major outages, and because of that, things like Netflix and Hulu were not able to be accessed in some regions. Now, the root cause of this that they came out with was the fact that CenturyLink, one of their transit providers, was down. Why does this enter into the security? Well, part of security is availability, and things like Hulu and Discord and others were unavailable. Now, the other reason this enters into security is, what does Cloudflare do? Cloudflare protects you, protects your infrastructure. One of their main things is DDoS protection, and so it protects your infrastructure from being DDoSed. So it's a cool company. You can check them out, but they had an outage and that caused issues, and it came out down to one of their providers. So if your transport provider was CenturyLink, yours would be down. All right, moving on to Windows security vulnerabilities. It came out that Windows 10 built-in security antivirus could actually download viruses, which this is a problem because while somebody would have to be on the computer and enter into Windows Defender command line tool to actually go and then download the virus, the problem is that the Windows Defender network traffic could be flagged as safe. And if this was to be the case, then you would have issues in a network that trusted it, and you could have a bad actor. So it's something to be thinking about. Next, the United States senators continue to attack and try to regulate things they don't understand. There is still pressure to put backdoors into encryption, something that is going to really, you can't. The thing that they don't understand, you put a known backdoor into encryption, and the problem is your encryption becomes really complicated encoding and is mostly useless. So you need to take action, call your senators, especially if you're in, South Carolina, and let them know that they need to be reaching out to security experts and to work on a plan, because they'll pull at your heartstrings by using things like child exploitation, and that is horrible, and I don't condone or support it in any way. But this is not how we keep our children safe. Making us all less safe is not the way to keep our children safe. They say that they'll use it to track down people, but the problem is it wouldn't actually even keep people from doing the bad things. It might just help us catch them, but they might have already exploited our children. So that's not really that helpful. And unfortunately, criminals tend to break the law. And so they probably use an encryption algorithm that didn't have a backdoor in it. So that really doesn't help us a whole lot. So anyways, I really urge you guys to get involved in that and make sure that you voice your opinion. All right, let's get out of politics. It sounds like too much news is about politics, and I'm sorry, I try to keep this out of politics, but I feel very strongly about security online. And yeah, let's move on to open source and Kubernetes. All right, so both Canonical and SUSE engineers have made a call for the Linux system to be more extensible and more extensible Linux system calls. And the reason for this is us providing, I say us because I happen to work for a Linux distribution, to provide a better experience for our users and to customize the Linux experience. It's very difficult to do with current day Linux system. And so it would really be helpful to be able to extend that a little bit more. All right, something I'm really excited about is the GitHub Stars program. So I was really confused when I first heard of this because I was like, well, GitHub already has stars. You can go star a repository. And that's not what this is. GitHub Stars is about rewarding people who are helping encourage the open source community, doing things like creating videos like I do here, and putting the spotlights on those people and actually rewarding them for their work. So it's not just creators, it's all about people who make videos and tutorials and help, as well as commit code to different repositories and help the open source community. So they already have some people that they rewarded, and they put spotlights on those people, and it's actually really interesting. You should go read about those people and star some of their repositories because they have done some fantastic work, and it's really cool to see GitHub rewarding these people and doing this for them. So that's really awesome. All right, an unlikely place for me to find tech news. I found this on Yahoo, and really Google found it. I don't surf Yahoo, so don't judge me. I know you already have judged me a little bit for bringing up Yahoo at all, but on Yahoo, there was a really interesting article on HA proxy ingress controller. And basically they claimed that it was way faster using less resources. So they claimed double the number of requests with half the CPU usage. I have not verified this to be true. I'm going to link the article below, and maybe in the future I will look at trying to recreate this and see if I can get their same results. Because that's awesome if it's true. All right, so Kubernetes 120 is just getting underway. So if you're looking for a project to get involved with, there's a lot of work to be done in Kubernetes 120. So it's a great time to get started in the project because everything is just getting going. So if you're interested in that, I've left some links below on how to get involved in it, and I highly recommend you check it out and get involved. All right, so let's move on to cloud news. The very first thing we'll talk about is Azure. Azure really dropped the ball this week. The only really thing of notice was their Azure Spring Cloud. I actually first read it as Azure Spring Cleaning and thought it was going to be something to help you clean up your cloud, but it's Azure Spring Cloud, and all this is a fully managed service for your Spring Boot apps. So 80 people out there with a Spring Boot app that wants to manage have a fully managed Spring Boot service, Azure Spring Cloud has come to your rescue. They also made some improvements to their connector for Azure Cost Management, which allows you to see your costs in AWS as well as it allows you to see your AWS and Azure costs all in one dashboard. Pretty cool. If you use both, it's there. 2 projects to date that have kind of done the same thing. The first is going to be Sun OS, which then got renamed to Solaris when Oracle bought them. And Oracle is so hated that most people forget Oracle exists. That's amazing. You've reached greater levels of hate than Amazon. So anyways, after Solaris came CoreOS, and they were a pretty awesome OS until Red Hat bought it and kind of shut it down. Now, Red Hat did bring some of the features into the base operating system, but a lot of it was shut down. Now, coming from AWS, the second most hated tech company after Oracle. Most people think it's the first most hated, but they forget about Oracle, which is so hated we forget about it. So coming from AWS comes Bottlerocket. And I'm going to tell you why this is the biggest piece of news in 2020 so far. First, to understand the needs of Kubernetes, the biggest news in 2020 for Kubernetes, let me put it that way. Some of the biggest needs and what CoreOS solved is you needed an OS that was able to be configured in a Kubernetes way and be able to be updated in a Kubernetes way. What happened is that Kubernetes kind of dictates and mandates that you don't treat your machines quite the same way as classical systems did. And this is where CoreOS really led the charge and was really cool. So Bottlerocket kind of takes this and does it even better, in my opinion, at least from what I've seen so far. Now, you can expect a plethora of videos on this Bottlerocket because I'm going to take it. I'm going to build some clusters with it. We're going to explore it and see where it shines, where it fails, and where it holds up and doesn't hold up to its claims. So hopefully you guys are interested in Bottlerocket because there's going to be some videos. Trust me, there's going to be quite a few videos on Bottlerocket. So let's go over some of the more notable features. So first is API access for configuring your system with secure out-of-band access methods. This is huge. This is something that you can use the machine API and the cluster API to create clusters, as well as to configure them in a Kubernetes way, as well as when Kubernetes needs to. So this is an API for your OS. Very awesome. The next thing is they do partitions or they do updates based off of partition flips. So not only does this give you a quick update, so very little downtime of your node, but it also gives you a fast rollback as well as is safer than most normals where you're actually mucking with the system. You're not really doing that. You're just flipping over partition. So this is a fantastic Kubernetes-esque way of handling this. There's also modeled configuration that migrates through updates that helps manage this partition flipping and is pretty awesome from what the documentation looks like. Now, like I said, we're going to do some deep dives into this because I'm going to deep dive into it. And so when I dig deeply into it, I'm going to bring you guys along to explore this. So the very last thing that they call out is it has a security as a top priority. So basically they lock everything down to make it as secure as possible for running containers because it is designed to run containers. This is really awesome and should be really cool. Now, another thing that they didn't bring here that I love seeing is that the majority of the project is in Rust. And this goes with the security as a top priority. Rust is one of the most secure languages you can program out there. It manages memory and makes you do it safely. Not that you can't do bad things, but it tries to force you to do them in a most secure way that can be enabled. And so not only is that, but it is fast. It is very fast. So you should be getting a secure, lightweight, fast OS. So I am super excited to see this. I am super excited to see this alongside Firecracker, which is a really fast VM technology. And I think the pairing of these two could be really awesome. And I am pumped about this. All of the rest of the news wanes in comparison. I really think that this is really big news. Now, unfortunately, it comes from a company like AWS, but that is said, it is an open source project. You can go out there and fork it, as well as this means that it's also not something that's going to go away. I like this because sometimes these little startups make something that's cool, but then the startup goes away or gets bought, CoreOS, and goes away. You can be assured that AWS is using this in their infrastructure, and it means that this project is going to exist long term. So you can count on it. All right, I'm going to stop ranting on that because you guys are going to get like 6 or 7 videos of me testing this out in the near future. So you don't need any more of that right now. Let's move on and hit the rest of AWS news. So they introduced a new streaming data solution for Amazon Kinesis. So if you're a Kinesis user, there is now a implementation that does this and manages it all for you. And it's really nice. It helps you solve a lot of problems for real-time streaming and capturing high volume application logs, and continuously delivering to the data lake. So it's kind of a one-stop solution to all of your Kinesis problems. So you should go check that out if you're a Kinesis user. And seriously, who uses AWS and doesn't use Kinesis? Probably anybody that wants to save money. It's expensive. All right, let's move on to GCP now. GCPs was kind of a really large section and nothing groundbreaking. So they made a lot of improvements to ML ops. And I might make a video on some of this because there's a lot of stuff there and a lot of stuff to sift through. But they announced some AI platform and ML ops that look really good just to empower your ML workloads and your workflows. So there's a link below to some of the videos on that. They didn't release a whole lot of data on it. Basically, they said this was a pre-announcement. So this is pre-news. So as more comes out, I will be sharing my highlights on those. But for right now, it looks like they have some really cool stuff in the ML ops. And really, they do lead in a lot of that when you're looking at, they really back Kubeflow and things like that, a Kubernetes native ML workflow. So it would make sense. Let's move on to technology. So NVIDIA has released a new beta release of CUDA WSL. So this allows you to run CUDA workloads in WSL. Now, their first release was really horrible and barely worked, and I didn't even think it was worth a video. This I will be releasing a video on. It finally has become stable enough to use. Now, it still is missing a lot of features like OptiX, NVIDIA SMI, and multi-GPU support. So it's still not there, but it is getting a lot closer. And it is now usable to start trying out some of these things. So I think it's worth a look. All right, so NVIDIA is releasing their 30 series GPU. And I have some news. My wife strictly forbade me. Hopefully she doesn't watch this video, but we are getting a 3080 GPU. And what we're going to do is I have a 2070, and in a couple of weeks, you're going to hope, well, probably more than a couple of weeks, but depending on how fast I get within 2 weeks after I get my 3080, I am going to be running benchmarks between the 3080 and the 2070. I've been building some test pipelines and some workflows, some different workflows to test how they stack up to each other. Because my thought is you might be able to snag some pretty cheap 2070s and do ML better and faster for your money. Now, the other thing is a lot of these consumer cards, they don't actually release the specs with how well they do with machine learning. And so I'm going to be here to show you how they stack up with ML. Now, it looks like they have a lot of memory, which is going to be really good for ML. So I'm going to let you know how they do, and you should see a video on that as soon as I can get one. NVIDIA, if you're watching, you should send me an early one because you love me. All right. Verizon is hiring 1,000 work from home employees. And why this is important, I could care less about Verizon, to be honest. But it's important because it means that some of these larger companies are actually looking for work from home people. I know people like myself, this is very important to because there are it's been a very long time. I have never had the opportunity to work for one of the larger companies. Let's say I wanted to work for Microsoft, Amazon, Google, or Facebook. I couldn't because I can't move there right now. And so this is a really big deal. And I like to see that these companies are getting more comfortable with remote workers. And so that's cool. All right. This the next piece of news is only because I love radiochemistry. And if you don't know what I mean by radiochemistry, I mean nuclear chemistry. And the news is NuScale came out with a small nuclear reactor. Now, I think they're overhyping it a little bit. It looks like it's going to be a lot safer than the old plants, even though the old plants, let's be real, are super safe. So more safer than super safe is really super safe. So yeah, but they comment on how it's about 100 times smaller, but it produces like 1/50th of the power. So really, it's only like half the size, but it's more modular, and that's important because now you can do as many as you want and have them more distributed, because a lot of power is wasted getting the power to places. You have to pump a lot of power and you lose a lot of power pumping it through there. So it really is a big deal and is really good. But these older plants are like 50 years old. So it's not a huge surprise that in 50 years, we can get it, the plants smaller. I mean, this is what Apple has been doing to the phone for years. And they've only been doing it for 10 years. So anyways, it's really cool. I'm excited about it. When they say small, it is about a 7-story tall building and 4 school buses wide, for the width of 4 school buses wide. So that's about 15 feet wide, and like almost 80 feet tall. So it's not really small. It doesn't sit on your desk, not on a desk. All right. Sorry. That has nothing to do with technology other than I'm sure computer systems are involved. Other than that, I have no idea. All right, so I have 3 projects for shoutouts. The first is 11T High Performance Blog. So 11T is a static website generator, and if you use it for your blog, Google released a high performance version of it that is just a template for a really high performance version of it, and that seemed cool. I don't personally use it, but if you do, it's worth a look. Then next is personally, I'm excited about it. It's the seccomp operator. If you watched my Kubernetes one, you'll see my colleague, Sasha, has been working on the seccomp support in Kubernetes. And then he went on to bring the seccomp operator to manage your seccomp profiles in Kubernetes. It's pretty exciting. It's really cool. He's a really smart guy. You should go check it out. Get involved if you'd like. It's a young project now. And bring extra security, another layer of security. You're going to hear me say that. You hear me say that a lot, and I'm sorry. Another layer of security to your Kubernetes clusters. So let's do that. The next one is called Descheduler. It's a Kubernetes SIG project. So basically what this comes into is, let's say you have 4 nodes and you schedule 100 pods on those 4 nodes. Now, let's say after a while, you need to scale it back down and you remove 25 pods from node 2. Now, that means you have 25 pods running on 3 of your nodes and 0 pods running on 1 of your nodes. The Kube scheduler doesn't care and doesn't give a crap. Now, if you ask it to schedule another pod, it will put it on node 1 because it doesn't have any pods and it looks like a good place to put it. But it's not going to even load out. And this is where Descheduler comes in. Descheduler is going to kill some of the pods to get them rescheduled. And so it does this in a clean way so it evens out your nodes so you don't have overworked, overloaded nodes and ones doing nothing. This is important for fragmentation purposes. You don't want you to get your nodes fragmented and some things like that, especially if you need space to put them. It's not right for everybody, but it's worth knowing about in case you suffer from it. And there's clusters that are more prone to suffer it, especially ones that scale and retract a lot. So if your cluster is one of those, this could be really helpful. All right, that's going to be it for me today. I did want to let you know that this is the second time I recorded this, because the first time my camera operator cut me off right in the forehead. So I hope that you liked it. I hope that you found it informative. I hope that I talked about the technology you wanted. If I didn't talk about the technology you wanted, join the Discord, have a conversation, and let me know what you'd be excited in seeing. All right. I will see you in the next video. If you did not like these videos at all, I'm gonna need you to go ahead, hit the subscribe button, stick around, and see if these videos get any better for science. This is Merrick Counts with Null News Now.